Welcome first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli. To find out more about the Sports Deli podcast, check us out online at thesportsdelypodcast.com. And whether you're folding laundry, driving, exercising, or cooking, grab your favorite deli sandwich or bagel and your favorite beverage, and let's do this together in the Sports Deli. So honored on this 25th day of Give a Bunch of Balloons Month, LGBTQIA month. We're 6 days removed from Juneteenth and 5 days removed from Father's Day, to be joined by Seattle, Washington native, the albino rhino, Karl Mecklenburg. Karl went to the University of Minnesota as a walk-on transfer after initially attending Augustana College in South Dakota. But it wasn't easy. Minnesota tried taking a scholarship back after his injury in his first year at Minnesota. But the next year, he led the Big Ten in sacks, and now we will hear the rest of the story. There's a reference there for you, those of you that are a little bit older and know what that means. Even though he only ran a 4.940, which for those of you that don't know, that's way too slow to play major college football, let alone in the NFL for 12 years. But he was later drafted nonetheless by the Denver Broncos in the 12th and final round of the 83 draft with the 310th overall pick, but not before he went to bed first, because he figured it wasn't meant to be and planned on continuing his plan to go to medical school. But in the middle of the night, Coach Dan Reeves' secretary called, and when it was time to be picked, 25 picks away from Mr. Irrelevant, he was obviously ecstatic but surprised. And as you will hear the rest of the story today, when it was all said and done, Karl was regarded as one of the top 10 Broncos of all time. He was drafted in the same draft as Dan Marino and teammate and Hall of Famer John Elway, but it was Karl who secured an apartment first, even before John, because he was so confident in the fact that he would make the team, even though he was drafted in the 12th round and John Elway was 309 picks ahead of Karl at number 1 overall. Karl later found out that he had the highest intelligence score of any senior in the 83 draft, now known as the Wonderlic test, and is a major reason why Coach Reeves drafted him, despite being an undersized lineman in college. He was in speech therapy as a kid because he had a lisp and dyslexia. He ended up being quicker and more versatile than most, and why he became an all-pro linebacker for the Denver Broncos for 12 seasons. He was a part of 3 trips to the Super Bowl in 86, 87, and 89 as a member of the Orange Crush, 7 postseason appearances, 6 Pro Bowls, and is the only Bronco in history to have 4 quarterback sacks in a game, not once, but twice, one when he was fighting the flu that day. Football definitely took its toll, however, on Karl, as we will discuss later, as he had 18 football-related surgeries and at least 10 concussions. After football was completed, Karl has done motivational speaking, a wide range of charity events, and in his words, "I take the opportunity and responsibility to work with charities very seriously and believes decisiveness is one of the most important aspects of becoming successful." His audiences have called him an amazing storyteller, inspirational, entertaining, and hilarious as a member of the National Speakers Association. He was inducted into the Broncos Ring of Fame in 2001. Other all-time Bronco greats like John Elway, obviously, and most recently, Peyton Manning. He is in Madden NFL 15. He's an author, and we'll talk about his book later, Heart of a Student Athlete, All-Pro Advice for Competitors and Their Families, which took him 5 years to write. You can find him on Instagram at Karl Mecklenburg. Mecklenburg is with a U at the end, Berg, like Frostburg State, where I went to graduate school. That's on Twitter. And on his website, karlmecklenburg.com, where you can book Karl for events, sign up for his newsletter, purchase his book, as we mentioned earlier. And man, that was probably the longest intro I've had. But man,
that may be the longest one I've ever had too.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. It's amazing to have you in the Sports Deli, and we're truly honored. Glad we could finally work things out.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be fun. Wow, you put a lot out there with the intro. Where do you begin?
Where we began? Well, we have something in common. You and I both played junior varsity as juniors.
There you go. Yeah.
Which, with me, it was basketball and baseball. And with you, it was football, right? And
right. Yeah, I got cut from baseball. I didn't even get a chance to play.
Cut from baseball. That's amazing. So there's your why, right? You get. We've talked about this a lot with Jay Billis and some other guys. What their motivation was, and for me, being on JV was great, but I was mad at the world. I was like, this is, hey, what's going on here? But I just wanted to play. So how was it for you? Were you pissed off? Was it just
yeah, it was difficult to understand. On one side, looking back, I had just moved the year before. They didn't know whether I was a player or not. Edina had a kind of a feeder system, and the coaches talk to each other, and all of a sudden this new guy shows up. It is what it is. You're working and playing football, whether it's JV football or varsity football, was a blast for me. I mean, my dad tells a story about my first football game. I'm 10 years old. My dad's a doctor. He's got rounds that morning. And so he was a little late when he showed up. It was just an inter squad scrimmage at that age. But I was done playing. So I'm on the sidelines, and he comes and puts his arm around me and asks, Karl, what do you think about football? And my response as a 10-year-old child was, Dad, I really love to smash guys. I guess I was a linebacker, right?
That's right.
From day one. So yeah, I love the game. And as a ninth grader, I was the smallest starter on our football team. I didn't even make the obviously as a junior, I didn't make the varsity team. We already talked about that. As a senior, I was all state, both as a tight end and a defensive end, but I was only 6 feet tall and 200 pounds. So I wasn't big enough to play major college football. So I ended up at Augustana. I grew 3 inches and 40 pounds my first year of college, and things changed. All of a sudden I had the heart, but I also had the body now, and things changed.
Wow, that's amazing. Were you like a football family? Like, would you guys sit down on Sundays and like watch games together and all that kind of stuff?
Not so much, but my grandfather on my mom's side was a little All-American at University of North Dakota. He's actually on their all-time football team. And my uncle Art played college football there also. My dad's side, my dad's dad was like 6'5" and 300 pounds. And back in the day, that was really big, right? I mean, you just didn't see people that big. So yeah, I kind of got it from both sides.
Yeah, that's cool. So when I was prepping for the show, obviously you have an amazing attitude. We'll talk a little later about some of the things that you've been through and some of the lines that you crossed, when you were thinking about becoming, either a captain or just a leader, and how you tried to do things that we're talking about now in terms of social injustice, or talking to people that didn't look like you or talk like you and things like that. But before, as far as COVID goes, you've been quoted as saying, there's been a lot of deaths, and but just like you would pivot as a linebacker, right? You're reading something and there's an audible, and you gotta figure things out pretty quickly. Your IQ was through the roof, and that's why you had so much success. But how have you and the family and all your endeavors handled COVID, and what have you taken away from all of this?
Yeah, well, it's been tough in many ways, but that's the same for everybody. It's adjusting. Anytime you have to change, especially when you get forced into change. It's a hard thing. We just had my dad's memorial service last week, and he passed a year ago, April. And we couldn't get the family together. My brothers in Saudi Arabia, they weren't letting people out. I mean, there's just no way, so I mean, things have gone on that are tough, and they're tough for everybody. But when it happened, I was thinking, this is something that I'd never seen before. But really, the situation was real similar in my mind to when I got injured as a ball player. I mean, I couldn't do, I'm on crutches. I'm just trying to rehab while everyone else is practicing, and it reminded me of that whole all of a sudden your world is turned upside down, and what do you do? Well, in my mind, you do what you can do. You don't worry about what you can't do. You focus on what you can do. For me, it was making those connections across the entire team instead of, how sports, especially in football, the offense hangs out with the offense, the defense hangs out with the defense, the old guys hang out with the old guys, the young guys hang out with the young guys, the black guys hang out with the black guys, the white guys hang out with the white. It's just comfortable, right? So in that situation, I was crossing those lines. I was making connections across those lines. And then when I was able to play again, I was right back into it, but I had all these connections, and it really made me more effective as a captain.
Yeah, you definitely fast forwarded there, but let's jump ahead and talk about it, because it's interesting, because a big part of our show is talking about some of these important issues. That a lot of people have um, laid the groundwork. Whether it's people like you that no one really talks about, that did it in the locker room, which is such a great example to how we should handle things in society. Or we're talking about the obvious suspects like Muhammad Ali and Arthur Ashe, and those types of people. I mean, number one, rehab was different back then. We didn't have the resources, right? Like, it was a
Right.
lot tougher, a lot longer. And so someone like you, who just wants to be out on the green, like just chomping at the bit, so you have to. But how did you learn to have that kind of attitude early on? Because not everybody has that attitude. It's tough. They don't just get up and say, hey, I'm going to control what I can control today and let nature take its course. What do you tell people that have a hard time with that?
It is tough. And I'm
Hi,
sorry about
buddy.
my dog.
Hi, buddy.
I don't know what's
We
going
love
on out
dogs
there.
on the show. Yeah, so we're good.
Libby,
Hey, Libby.
knock it off.
Libby, your dad's gonna tackle you.
So I think the question, was, how did I have that attitude?
Yeah, where'd you learn that?
I think I grew up with it. My father and my mother both came from blue collar families. Both of their parents worked at the Swift and Company, the meat packing plant in South St. Paul. My dad went through medical school funded by the Army. My mom was a home ec major, and then I saw her just grow tremendously when the kids left. She got involved in the anti-abortion movement. Then she was working for Congress. She was Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Reagan administration. Ultimately, the home ec major, I saw you could do what you can do if you put your mind to it and you put all your effort into it. And that example I had at home was a great opportunity for me to really say, all right, this is a bad situation right now, but I can find something good in this bad situation. There is always something good to be found in a negative situation. There's opportunity. There's opportunity in trouble.
Well, what a forward-thinking family. I mean, bet on women. Your mom is everyone flew the coop, and obviously she had other endeavors that she pursued, but your dad didn't make excuses. Obviously, there's some financial help there, from the military, but things are subjective, right? You don't really realize how the dots get connected and how you see the world, how you approach adversity and those types of things. But, when you see your dad supporting your mom, as an equal, when you see, your dad helping people and working long hours and not making excuses and supporting the family. And so now you sort of see, like, A, there's no excuses. And B, you follow your dreams. And if you're going to do something, we're not going to settle for mediocrity. We're going to be all in. Otherwise, why even pursue it?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. To me, success is overcoming obstacles on the way to your dreams. That's what it is. And if you're not running into obstacles, you're not pushing hard enough. That's something that for me anyway was obvious from early on.
And obviously had to face some of that in college, and if you want to touch on that, you can. But nowadays, what it reminds me of is a lot of the kids that I coach personally, or even adults, when I used to do private lessons with golf or basketball or tennis, they have such, not just a short attention span, but the details, whether it's footwork, right? Football is all about technique and angles and positioning. You can be athletic as hell, and if you don't understand positioning and angles, and how to put yourself in a position to anticipate those types of things. Same in basketball, right? Like, the people that have the most amazing footwork oftentimes succeed more than the ones that have all the athleticism. But now the patience level of people to learn those fundamental things seems like it's harder because they want instant success, the instant gratification kind of thing. So that's part one. Part two, from my perspective, is you have an old school coach sometimes still teaching these kids. So you're expecting the kids to understand you from an old school mindset. And then, but we're not understanding them and finding that middle ground. So, obviously the game's evolved, basketball, football, whatever we're talking about, tennis, everything's evolved. But I still think there's a disconnect there. I don't know how you feel about it, but it just seems like there's a disconnect there on a lot, and we let a lot fall through the cracks. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. One of the things you said in your introduction, among many other things, was that that decisiveness was key to who I was. Run a 4.9 40, not fast enough to play in the NFL. I found out early on in my career, if I could take the first step in the right direction before anybody else did, all the angles would change in my favor. The tight end couldn't pin you in, the guard can't cut you off, the fullback can't keep you. Everything changes. So how can you be decisive? Well, it's through preparation. It's through going into every situation, already having thought about it, already having worked on it, already prepared, and allowing yourself to be decisive. I sat right next to everybody else in that linebacker meeting room, and I knew they were getting the same input that I was getting. Why did I take that step first? Well, because I trusted myself. I allowed myself to go and not to be afraid of making a mistake, not holding myself back. And I think a lot of people would rather be mediocre than fail. And that's not the way I'm built. I'm going to go when it's time to go. I'm going to go. And it's that to me is huge for anybody, whether it's someone in a sports situation, somebody in a relationship situation, somebody in a business situation. It's the same concept. If you can prepare and go into each situation. I get up every morning, do a little Bible study, think about what's important to me, who I'm going to bump into that day, how I can influence them, or how I can help them, or how I can make a difference. And then when those opportunities arise, I'm prepared and I can go. It's not a surprise to me.
That's awesome. And so, you're paying attention to your inner voice, your vibration, you're being true to who you are, you're comfortable in your own skin. And part of it is too, you didn't have a choice. If you didn't take angles or position yourself properly and overachieve, forget about it.
Right? Yeah. Well, in the NFL, it's eighth of a second is a huge difference. I mean, at the end of my career, I was just a hair slower than I'd been, and I was already slow. So, I got it. I mean, my last year with the Broncos, I had 3 concussions and during that season. And back then they didn't, how many fingers? It's always 2. So you say 2 and you go back in. I mean, that was it. So it was rough. But the point is that it's the decisiveness, the preparation of going in, and then allowing yourself to go. I remember Peyton Manning's retirement speech. And I don't know if you saw that, but he went back to it at least 5 times. No one's going to out-prepare me. That was his whole game, especially when he was with Denver. He had a broken neck already. He could only throw the ball about 30 yards. But they won a Super Bowl because he was decisive. He would react before anybody else would react. And I mean, the ball was fluttering and whatever, but it didn't matter. It got to where it had to get to.
Well, and Tom Brady, same thing. Ron James, he's smarter than probably his coaches. These guys at the top, they're not just talented in their own respects, but they're, they prepare.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I had under Joe Collier, our defensive coordinator for most of my career, we had over 120 different defenses, each with adjustments that changed week to week. And I played all 7 defensive front positions. They moved me around all the time, trying to put me at the point of attack. So I don't know, you do the math. So that's a lot to know. So you got, I mean, you got to trust yourself, because if you're confused, some big 300-pounder is going to hit you in the ear hole, and then that'll be that.
Totally. So before we talk about the next thing on our menu, tell everyone about your ring. You're wearing a ring. You got a football.
I got a couple rings. Yeah. This one's a AFC championship ring. I got 3 of those. And this one's a Ring of Fame ring. They put my name up in the stadium and they gave me that ring. Maybe someday I'll end up with a Hall of Fame ring, or one of those type of things, but we'll see.
Those types of things. Absolutely.
One of those type of things. I would love to have that, but my situation's kind of weird. Because I played all 7 front positions, my statistics don't match up with anybody in the league, and never have. So, they would say, well, he was a pass rusher, but he only had 80 sacks, or he's a linebacker. Well, he only had this many interceptions or this many tackles. Well, I was moving all over. So I did a lot of different things. And how do you compare? You really can't.
So would it have to go to the special committee? How would that work?
I'm not sure. They have me listed as a linebacker. So I guess, I'm being compared with middle linebackers. Now, obviously I had more sacks than any middle linebackers that, whatever, but that's because I was a pass rusher when it was time to be a pass rusher. And I did whatever the coaches told me to. That was my job, was to tackle the guy with the ball, basically. So it's just like, put me where the ball is. That makes it easier for me. So that was what they did. They moved me around all the time.
Sports Deli is sponsored by SportRx, the leader in sport prescription eyewear. You can find them online at sportrx.com. And don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here on the Sports Deli. So you played with, John Elway. That was an interesting story about how that whole thing came about, right?
Sure.
Tell everyone that story. You're up against someone from Northwestern, and then he ended up being part of the trade.
Oh, yeah. So, Chris Hinton was the offensive lineman from Northwestern. And the Broncos
kicked his ass, basically.
Well, I took care of him when we played against him when I was at Minnesota. But the Broncos drafted him in the first round.
Yes.
If I'm still available in the 12th round, they're like, this is the one guy who really handled Chris during the college season as a senior. So maybe we should draft him too. So that's kind of what got my foot in the door. And it was, obviously he didn't last there very long, because he all of a sudden was out with the Colts. So Baltimore at the time, now Indianapolis. But he was a great player for a long time. I mean, he was, I don't know, he's probably won as many Pro Bowls as I did.
Yeah, a couple Pro Bowls, but not the career that you had.
Yeah.
But he was also part of the trade that brought John to Denver.
Yes, he was. A couple other, Mark Herman.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah. So that was interesting from a leadership standpoint, because the Broncos drafted Gary Kubiak that same year.
Mm-hmm.
Gary was running first team during all the rookie stuff. He was the future. And then all of a sudden, Elway's there, and he's not going to play, and he knows he's not going to play. And instead of fussing about it and asking for a trade or doing whatever he could do to get out of there, he decided to lead from the sidelines. I mean, he was amazing with his work ethic as far as preparing for games. He'd get the whole game plan down for the offense, and then he'd also study the other team's quarterback and what they did in certain situations and how they threw the ball. Like, I don't know if you remember Bernie Kosar, but the quarterback for Cleveland, he had this crazy throwing motion where his body's facing one way, but the ball's coming out a different way, right? He had this, I don't know, but yeah, it was this goofy thing, and Gary copied it perfectly for us, just so we'd be prepared.
Wow.
And if he ever did have to go to the game, John was hurt or something, we more often than not won that game, because Gary was a good quarterback himself. Gary was a 8-time All-State athlete in Texas. Now, that's insane, right? He was baseball, track, basketball, and football as a junior and as a senior All-State in Texas. I mean, just a stud. But he went to the sidelines and was wearing a cap. I mean, he had this tradition with me where before every game he'd come up and say, "Meck, hold up the class." And I thought, what is that? Well, we were drafted the same year, I guess, so that maybe it was that. But then it occurred to me, it probably what he meant by that was, Karl, I've done everything I can do all week long to get you ready. I'm going to be standing here on the sidelines with a clipboard and a hat on. Hold up the class. So yeah, Gary, and he's still leading from the sidelines. He's coaching for the Vikings at this point. But yeah, I mean, he's just a tremendous individual, and to see him humble himself, like I said, that 8-time All-State athlete, to humble himself and say, all right, I'm the backup quarterback and I'm going to do whatever I can to help this team win, was pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, that explains a lot for sure now about how he's handled himself on the other side. Yeah. So do you want to talk about your college experience? Like once you got to Minnesota, because sometimes we talk on the show about how coaches have to act now in terms of the big picture. Obviously Power Fives are a whole different animal. Maybe we'll go to a super conference one day. We're possibly going to expand to 12 teams for the college football playoff, those types of things. But do coaches have to approach things differently, prepare themselves differently, maybe educate themselves in a different way so that when the parents come on campus, when the kids come on campus, they don't see them as out of touch, and they let them know that it is going to be more than football now, because everyone knows that student athletes are going to speak out. Women are going to speak out. And so, you're not going to say, do as I say only, and not, so how do you think, are we going in the right direction, or we still got a lot of old school guys that are just like, eh?
Wow. That's a good question. Especially in light of this week's announcement that they're going to be making money too, and there's going to be negotiations, and there's going to be payments from name sales and all. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Who knows how it's going to spin. And I think there's room for old school guys as far as blocking and tackling still is what wins football games. And when I watch the NFL now, with such a lack of just technique and repetitive technique. I mean, if you don't wear pads, truthfully, I don't think I'd have made the league the way they have training camp now. I needed 2-a-days. I needed full pad every day, because that's where I shone. I don't look good in shorts. I don't. so right. I mean, if it's gonna be a track meet, I'm not gonna win. But if it's a football game, yeah, I'll play. So I think there's room for toughness. I think there's room for discipline. I think there's room for a lot of things at every level of football. That's ultimately what those lessons that you learn from playing sports really give you in the long run is self-discipline and the ability to get in a tough situation and figure a way out of it. So for me, hopefully that old school, if that's what is called, piece of coaching doesn't go away, but being able to relate to your players is not old school. That connection piece is so valuable for any coach. I didn't know I could play linebacker. I never played linebacker in my life until those coaches came to me and said, Karl, we love what you're doing as a defensive end and as a third down pass rusher and a special teams guy, but we think you can help the team more if you change the linebacker. All of a sudden, I got to run backwards. And I never went backwards on purpose in a football field in my life. Right? It's a whole different thing. My vision had to change. My angle of my body had to change. Everything had to change. And ultimately, it changed to up, down, back, forth, and everything all at once in one game. I mean, but I had to believe in those guys, those guys and understand that they knew more about me than I knew about me as far as athleticism and football. And so, I gave it a shot, and I made the Pro Bowl that year as an All-Pro linebacker. So you never know. I think one of the main lessons you could take out of my experience with coaches at that point in my life was that trust of this isn't going to be comfortable. This is going to be hard. Doing stuff I've never done before, but have the courage to try new things. We've each got more talent, more ability, more possibilities that we can use in a lifetime. But along with that, we've got free will, and we got to make those decisions. And hopefully we can trust some people who have a experience and allow them to mentor us and put us in situations where we can be successful. Joe Collier, Merle Moore, Stan Jones, our coaches made a huge difference in my life just with that one decision, but then over and over and over, trusting me and allowing me to use my skill set.
Yeah, you definitely did that, and then some. Who are you tackling in the painting behind you?
Mark Wilson, quarterback for the Raiders at that time. Yeah.
Who's sandwiching him with you?
I don't know. Who is that?
You can barely see.
Yeah, it's probably Rulon Jones.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Rulon and I had more sacks than anybody as a duo in NFL history at one point. I mean, that's changed now because they throw the ball all the time. But he and I won in, I think it was 87. He had 16 and I had 13. And we were playing, we were running games all the time, doing all kinds of twists and adjusting. It was fun.
Yeah, that's cool. How do you like the direction of the college game? You're a Nick Saban fan? I mean, who do you love to watch?
Actually, I like to watch my Gophers. My Gophers have actually gotten pretty good. Yeah. PJ Fleck is just, if you want to talk about a guy who's connected with his players, they love that guy. I mean, he is so full of energy and life and just running around out there. It's fun to watch him in that group. Actually, I'm going to have a chance to speak to the team when they're playing Colorado this year, so they're coming out. And, I did that a few years back, and they must have won because the coach asked me to come back again. Right? That's how it works.
It's funny. I grew up watching that. My first ever college football game was the Little Brown Jug. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience at the Big House for sure.
Yeah, now that's a crazy place to play, especially when you're the opposition. Just to hear that roar, go blue, back and forth, it just knocks you over. Yeah, that's great. Well, any other things as far as your collegiate experience goes? My collegiate experience was good. I mean, I had a chance to play against some great players in the Big Ten and really build the belief that I could be a pro football player. I had a coach named Mike Wynn. He had a cup of coffee with the Raiders at one point, but he was a defensive line coach there at Minnesota. And Mike was the first guy who told me they're going to find a spot for you on their roster if you can rush the passer in the NFL. And gave me hope there. I played every other play, every other series as a junior in college at Minnesota, and ended up tied for the lead in sacks in the Big Ten with Hall of Famer Andre Tippett. My senior year, we were so bad, no one threw the ball against us. So I didn't get to rush the passer very much, which changes your statistics. But my junior year, things had gone really well as far as personally. But yeah, so it was good. I was chasing my wife and I was doing pre-med studies, and I was playing major college football, so I didn't have time for anything. other than that stuff. So
The Sports Deli is sponsored by City Lokes, CITYLOCS. You can find them online at citylokes.com, where you can go and make your own personalized license plate hats. They're so cool. You got to check them out. And don't forget to enter the code TheSportsDeli at checkout for your special 10% discount. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli. So we mentioned earlier a little bit about the social injustice piece, obviously. Anything short of death is an opportunity for a conversation that Ryan Harris talked about when he came on the show, Super Bowl champ from the Broncos. And he said that he doesn't necessarily approach people that make, for lack of a better phrase, interesting comments when it comes to, systemic racism and things like that. He looks at it as why. He wants to learn why someone thinks the way that they think, because it's an opportunity to either bridge the gap or, find some middle ground, or, if there's no middle ground, at least have an understanding of why someone's thinking the way they are. And if someone's listening, at least they're trying to learn, you'd think. And so you mentioned earlier that you went across, to the linemen, or you ate with people that weren't necessarily in your group and things like that. And obviously there's more white people that are outspoken now versus in the past. It's usually the Black and brown community. And, we see a lot more white people standing up and being a voice and helping with policy changes. And, we're not there yet, but, it's I think there's a shift in the vibration. What are your thoughts about what you did back then when that wasn't popular, maybe, and how did they look at you? Like, were you like, stay over there?
It wasn't a hard line. It never was a hard line, I don't think. At least not in my experience. It was just what was comfortable.
Were you spiritual back then too?
Yeah. I was a minority as a defensive football player in the NFL. The 3 of the 6 Pro Bowls I played in, I was the only white guy on the defense. All right. So I knew what it was to be a minority. I knew what it was to have people make assumptions about you. I remember watching a replay of a football game, and I jumped over this Kansas City offensive lineman and tracked down their running back in the backfield and tackled the guy. And the announcer's like, "Oh man, that Mecklenburg's smart. That was unbelievable how smart that was." It's like, well, wait a second, really? I just made a great athletic play, but no, it's because he's smart. It's just, that's reality. We all have assumptions about other people. I'm glad that I've had the experience, and my kids have had the experience of growing up in a multiracial profession like football. Basically, it didn't matter where you were from, what color you were, anything about you really didn't matter as long as you could play the game. If you could play the game, you were accepted. If you couldn't play the game, you didn't belong there, right? You were gone. And it was obvious, to me that my background was different than a lot of other people's background. But if you look at the backgrounds of the people that play in the NFL, the one thing I think that we have in common is that we're overcomers. Whether it was overcoming your negative place where you grew up, your gangs or whatever, that kind of stuff, or whether it was, well, for me, it was overcoming in football. I got pushed back and knocked down, and it was when I got to training camp. It was, the first time I got up against a real pro player and got my ass whooped, all of a sudden it was, okay, I've been here before. I'm gonna figure out a way to get to the top of this group too. And I think that's what we have in common. And I think there's more in common than there is different. Sure. When you're in that locker room and everybody's trying to figure out a way to win the next game. That ties you together so well. My best friends on the team at this point, guys that I played with, Dennis Smith, Steve Atwater, are guys that I see probably more than anybody else, and they're black guys, but that really is irrelevant. We went through what we went through together, and that connection is what counts.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I was going to ask you about the brotherhood. I asked other people that have come on the show, what's it like to, after all these years, know that you can rely on these guys, the connections that you've had, the unspoken connection, the spoken connection. It must just be that's something you just can't plan for. Like, you just have no idea until later in life, what a powerful thing that is, to know that you went through so much together on so many levels, so many layers, and that you have this this second family, that just nobody can really understand probably unless you've been through it yourself.
Yeah. I guess probably I guess probably the closest thing you can tie it to is the armed services, where you're going through basic training and with people, and it's just hell, but you got through it together because you counted on each other, and you carried each other through it.
Was your brother in the service?
My dad was in the service. His brother was in the service. I was born actually in an Army hospital in Seattle. I don't know how long I was in Seattle, maybe a year, but I grew up in Minnesota. That was my was my home. Yeah.
So I want to pivot a little bit. I don't know what you're allowed to talk about or what you're comfortable talking about, but you've been quoted as saying, you expected to walk away from the game with limps and bruises and things of that, cartilage damage and things like that, but not necessarily what happened above the eyebrows and between the ears.
Yeah.
It was a different time. Where you just smell something or take a pill, and the doctors, the fans, the coaches, your fellow teammates, everyone, even yourself, expected just to go back out there and suck it up.
My job was to play the game. If the coach thought that my backup was better than me in my state of health at that moment, then fine, put him in. But until then, I'm not coming off the field.
Right.
Whether it's a concussion or I played half a season with cartilage torn in both my knees. Whatever. That's part of the game. It was not. One of the advantages of being a slow guy is that a three-legged mule can still pull. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I wasn't relying on speed. It was something else.
Yeah.
Right. So yes. There was an old school belief that you're here to play, and your guys are trusting and counting on you. I had gastroenteritis one time. It's an inflammation of your intestines. I was less than 220 because I couldn't keep any food down. And I told my wife, don't come to the game. I'm not going to be able to play. There's no way. But I went to the pregame meal, because you got to show up at everything. So I go to the pregame meal, and coach comes to me before the game and says, Karl, you got to play. You're the only one who can make all the calls, adjust everybody else. So fortunately, we were playing San Diego, and San Diego knew that I had been in the hospital and was sick and all that. So they ran isolations right at me every play. So when they run isolation at you as a linebacker, your job is to step up and take on the fullback. So basically, I had to take 3 steps and hit some guy. Now, I could do that all day long. I don't care if I'm sick or not. But if they would have made me run side to side, I'd have died.
Like now.
That'd have been the end of it. But no. So instead, they tried to run it right at me, which was perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. The Sports Deli is sponsored by PSK. You can find them online at lids.com, pskcollective.com, tjmax.com, walmart.com, and now Kohl's department store at Kohl's. Kohl's is KOHLS, Kohl's.com. They have some incredible women's athletic wear that's all inclusive. And again, you can find them online at 5 different locations: lids.com, pskcollective.com, tjmax.com, walmart.com, and Kohl's.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli. Do you have to sometimes take photographs? I think I read that somewhere, where you have to take photographs if you either go into a mall or just to.
Yeah, I used to do that more.
I should start doing that, because I can't remember where in the hell I park half the time myself.
Yeah, so I do that. As a professional speaker, I'm flying around, going to various places all the time. So there's a certain row in the airport parking that I always park in, just because then I don't have to worry about that. Or just check that one out. That's where my car is.
Pictures needed there. Yeah.
Right. It's not. I don't care if it's convenient for the airline I'm on or whatever. This is where I park. so yeah, I've definitely adjusted. And I mean, like you said in my introduction, I have dyslexia, so I've had to make a lot of adjustments in my life that way. I mean, whether it's obviously finding your way around, GPS is great for that now, but that didn't used to exist. But I got a degree in biology, basically because there's no essay tests in biology, right? I don't have to worry.
That was smart.
Right.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what life is, right? Making adjustments. If especially as you get older, there's things you can't do anymore, so you find something else to do.
So are we going in the right direction? Obviously we've seen terrible things with a lot of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Junior Seau, and there'll be more probably. And the games obviously change in terms of safety and those types of things.
Sure. From that standpoint, yes, they're going in the right direction. And so my grandfather, like I said, was a little All-American at University of North Dakota, and I'm watching a game with him. I was probably 12 years old. We're watching a college football game. It's Notre Dame against USC. They always played that on Thanksgiving. I don't know if you remember that growing up. So, but UND has the same. Notre Dame has the same initials as North Dakota, right? University of North Dakota, right? So he hated Notre Dame. No, we're the UND. So we always had to watch that game because he wanted to see them lose. So, but I'm watching the game, and the guys are really big. My grandfather was maybe 170 pounds, maybe, dripping wet. And I made the mistake of saying, "Grandpa, these guys are really big. I don't know if you could play nowadays." Hell, boy, I played when it was a man's game. Didn't have no face mask, didn't have no pads in my pants. Had to play both ways. I mean, that was, and so the game has always changed. It's always evolving, and I think the evolution now, especially the piece about treating a concussion as an injury instead of treating it as a nuisance or whatever they used to treat it as, it is very, very important. I'm 60 years old. I lose my keys now and then. I don't know if it's because I got hit in the head too often or it's just because I'm 60 years old. It's good that my mind is still active and I'm able to do the things I'm able to do. But there are a lot of my compadres you can't say the same thing. And especially situations like Junior Seau. Junior was a great friend of mine. He and his wife and my wife always used to hang out whenever we had an opportunity to, and it was really sad to see what happened with him. So yeah, CT is a real thing, and it needs to be treated like a real thing.
I'm glad the NFL came correct, and I'm glad that they, not only from the past perspective, but in the future, trying to do the right thing, say a lot about Roger Goodell and a lot of things, social injustice, and but as far as this goes, I think they've, a lot of the players probably hate it. I think they've done the right thing.
Yeah. It's it would be difficult. I would want to play even if I was dinged, just because that's who I am. I mean, that's
Yeah.
It's my team. It's
well, that has changed, right? The guys now want to do that too. Like they don't want
right.
to.
They do. You can see that
they 2 games now. Do we have a bye week? You know, please, do we have a bye week? You know, yeah. It sucks. You're a football player,
right?
Yeah.
Want to play football or what? So yeah, it was. It's hard to compare eras of football. When I played most of my career, there was very little passing. I mean, I shouldn't say very little, but not nearly the amount of passing there is now. And the game, I mean, just it's a completely different thing. If I watch the offensive linemen and their technique and what they're doing, man, I could have made hay today.
Could have been all those gaps.
Oh my goodness.
So is there a good support system out there now? Like if someone sees that someone's, not right or a little bit off, like is the NFL stepping in more, or is it just lip service?
Yeah, the Players Association, the Retired Players Association has lots of programs where you can get help. Yeah. There's help medically, there's help emotionally, there's help with substance abuse. There's all kinds of programs. The problem is guys tend to drift away when you retire from football, and that's in quotes. I can count on, in my 12 years in the NFL, I can count on one hand the number of guys I knew who actually said, yeah, they want me to come back next year, but I'm not going to come back. I'm done. That just doesn't happen. You're thrown out, or you're injured and out, or I mean, the vast majority of guys that get out of the NFL leave it bitter, and they don't want anything they don't want to even think about the NFL. They're done with the NFL when they leave. So that makes it a little difficult to track guys down and keep them in the loop. So when they do have issues, or they do have situations that need some help, then nobody knows.
Yeah, right. Or they don't want to admit it,
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that.
Sports Deli is sponsored by Moolah Kicks. Moolah is MOOLAH, like money, moolah, and kicks, like shoes, one word. You can find them online at moolahkicks.com, and it's the first ever female-only brand basketball shoe. So it's a shout out to the basketball street culture, and it is also about fighting social injustice and gender inequality worldwide and here in the United States. And again, you can find them at moolahkicks.com. And now back to this incredible interview right here in the Sports Deli.
You mentioned mental health, emotional health. Do you think that that's in a better place also, just because more people are coming into the forefront of talking about whatever it is, like you said, your childhood, or just retiring and how hard that is, or depression or anxiety? Maybe people have had it their whole careers and they just hit it because they had a routine and they had rituals, and now it
sure. Yeah, they cut you loose. When you're done, you're done. there's no coach telling you what to eat, or how many pounds to lift, or where to show up when, or what. You're just gone. And that was an adjustment. That definitely was an adjustment for me. And I'm sure it is for everyone. I didn't have the bitter thing because I retired when it was time to retire for me. But the other part of it was very real. All of a sudden, instead of someone telling me what to do, I got to make up my own mind. And it had been, even all the way through college. Like I said, I'm pre-med, and I'm, playing major college football. I got no time to worry about anything. Everything's laid out, and I got to do exactly what I got to do. And now all of a sudden you got choices. That's a tough thing to adjust to. But if you've got that personality and that mentality that was able to adjust week to week and go through the season and the off season and the season and the off season and all the adjustments you have to make in your life, you should be able to make that adjustment too.
Well, you were grounded growing up, and a lot of
that helped.
Have that.
Yeah, that helped, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
seeing
But you also have that friendship network of the guys that you played with. And that's, I guess, where the people that are really bitter and just go back to their hometown and never show up again are really missing, because they miss those connections. Because those connections are so real. I see it every year when I'm excited for Peyton Manning's induction into the Ring of Fame this year, because I'm going to be back there. Everybody will be there, and it'll be same old stories and same right, all that stuff.
pretty good player, that guy.
Oh yeah, Peyton was something else. Peyton was.
Yeah, he's a prankster. He's a lot of things. He's a funny guy. He's interesting.
Yeah. Don't ever hand him your phone to take a picture. If you want to take a picture, he'll say, "Oh, give me your phone," and I got long arms. And he'll switch it to Chinese somehow before you get it back, and you'll have no idea. It'll be all
that, or have your car towed.
Right. Yeah.
That's funny. So talk about your book.
My book is called Heart of a Student Athlete, All Pro Advice for Competitors and Their Families. It's my story coming up through youth football and all the overcoming. It's the same concepts I talk about when I'm speaking: teamwork, courage, dedication, desire, honesty and forgiveness, goal setting, universal, unchanging keys to success that allowed your grandparents to be successful and will allow your grandchildren to be successful. So I wrote the book a long time ago, but it's still just as relevant. Yeah, that's the word. Relevant today as it was the day I wrote it. Love having the opportunity to leave them behind. See, as a professional speaker, I got an hour with you, right? And the whole room. But the book, the idea behind the book was, get the same concepts down in the book. And then if people are like trying to remember, what you said, then there it is. So that was the idea behind the book. And I think I'm in the 5th printing of the book at this point. So it's been really well received.
That's awesome. All right, so let's get to the rapid fire, and then we'll leave the floor to you, our very famous this or that segment of the podcast. So buckle your seatbelt. Let's rock and roll here. So you said that the '86 AFC Championship game was your favorite game, just because of the atmosphere and what was at stake. And do you want to tell everyone briefly about that, and then tell us what your second favorite game was that you were a part of?
Wow. So the drive game, '86 AFC Championship game. We got to. This is supposed to be rapid fire.
No, this is sort of leading in, right? Exactly.
Okay, because I was going to say it's a bit of a story, but yeah. So we get there. We're in a downtown tower type of hotel with an alley behind it, and the Cleveland fans drove around our hotel all night long, honking their horns and barking, trying to keep us awake. We get in the bus and go down to the field on Saturday just for walkthroughs, just to see the field and stuff. And in downtown Cleveland at that time was nothing. I mean, there was nothing there. It was a dead zone. I mean, we saw one person in that 5-mile drive, and it was a drunk with sunglasses on, with one glass missing, kind of passed out against the wall as we're driving down. And on Sunday, we take that same route, and it's completely lined with Browns fans, all cussing at us and throwing dog bones at us and yelling. It was us against the world. And you get there, and at the time, it was the Mistake by the Lake, the old municipal stadium that was built for baseball. So you're in a baseball locker room, which means there's like 35 lockers, right? And you got 50 guys. So we got 2 guys in these little tiny lockers. You got to hang your clothes on the pipes. There's no hot water. You get out on the field. You can see the footprints from the guys that played the day, the week before. frozen in the mud because the wind's coming off of Lake Erie, and it was there was 3 inches of dog bones on our sidelines by the end of the game that they had just thrown at us all game long. You had to leave your helmet on the sidelines or you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, to go into that kind of environment and come out with a win was really special, and it was our first chance to go to the Super Bowl, so that was important too.
Wow. Oh man, that's just something you can't put a price tag on, man. That was incredible. I remember that. I was 17 at the time, so I definitely remember that game. I watched everything back then. I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday for sure.
Yeah. No, that was and actually the drive just tied the game.
Right.
So and we lost the toss. So Cleveland got the ball, and we got the 3 and out, and as a defense, that was huge. And then Carlos kicked the field goal that went right over the top of the upright. Right, if you're from Cleveland, you still swear that was not good. And if the upright actually did go higher, it would have hit it. I don't know if it would have bounced in or out, but it would have definitely hit it. I mean, it was that close to being not being a Super Bowl trip for us. So yeah, that was a big one. And probably, this might sound strange, but probably my other favorite game was the first game I ever played in the NFL. It was a preseason game against Seattle. I had been drafted as a nose guard, and I tore a ligament in my elbow during training camp. And so they taped it in a 90-degree angle so I could play, but I couldn't play nose guard because you got to be able to lock out with both arms. So they moved me to right defensive end. I played in this preseason game for the whole third quarter. And for some reason, Ron Essink, the starting tackle for Seattle, was still in the game. I guess he was overweight or under some sort of punishment or something. But I got 2 sacks and forced a fumble and was defensive player of the game and made the team. From that point on, I was starting on nickel defense. So that was a big game for me.
Man, I was going to predict the first game. I didn't know it'd be a preseason game though. That's cool. Okay, so here we go. Right or left inside linebacker?
I have dyslexia. I don't even know. So truthfully, it makes no difference whatsoever.
Yeah. So who's the toughest running back to play against?
Toughest to play against. So the little quick guys, a guy like Ronnie Harmon, guys that are just jitterbugs, that type of guy. Yeah.
Jack Ham or Junior Seau?
Junior.
Yeah. Ray Lewis or Mike Singletary?
Mike Singletary.
Those eyes.
Oh yeah. He's blind. he's just, I mean, he is so close to blind. He's got these glasses that are about that thick. He can't, he's bugging his eyes because he can't see anything. He cracks me up.
That wasn't the case back then, right?
Oh yeah. No, he had like super thick glasses. He couldn't hardly see.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. That's
he was a pretty interesting cat, and to lead that Bears defense and be so effective against the run and the pass the way he was. I mean, they used to drop him like he was a safety or something, right? He'd be way back there wandering around. And I got to know Mike a little bit at the Pro Bowl, and just a class guy and a guy that was a great player.
Oh yeah, amazing player. So blitzing against a tight end or a guard?
Tight ends are simple. I guess a tight end. Definitely a tight end is.
Tight ends now are a little different though.
Yeah, they're even softer now. I mean, they're speedy, they're fast, they can, but you don't have the, I guess we had our receiving tight ends too, but like on the Broncos, we had Clarence Kay and Orson Mobley, and these guys are basically tackles, but just tough, hard-nosed guys. And now it's more about catching the ball.
Best quarterback you went up against?
Wow. I'd have to say Joe Montana.
Yeah. Well, he always threw in front of you, right? He didn't really throw behind you that much.
Yeah, not very much. I mean, Jerry Rice got a lot of balls down the field, but they were crossing routes, and yeah. But yeah, just how quickly he got rid of the ball. And they ran all these option routes with the tight end and with the running backs, and whatever choice you made was wrong. You can't take away both sides, right? So you take away one, whatever, it was tough to play because he was so accurate. It was like a dart thrower or something. Like you say, he wasn't throwing down the field all the time, but he was throwing darts. You could try and break in front of the receiver and knock the ball down, but it would be 2 inches away from the tips of your fingers and just drive you crazy.
So Montana or Brady?
Brady.
What, for what reason? Just because he goes down?
Yeah, I think his ability to take a back seat, his ability to do whatever is best for the team. That Montana, he would drive you crazy with his accurate throws, but it was about Joe. He was gonna, if he had to take a back seat, he wasn't comfortable with that at all. And with Brady, if that team wins, he's happy. I mean, I don't know how many times every year you'll see where Brady has 100 yards passing and the offense has 350 yards because they ran the ball so much, because that's what we should do in this game. And he's fine with it.
Yeah, interesting. So for those of the people listening or watching on YouTube don't know, so Bill Belichick's first job was for Joe Collier, right? You're a coordinator when he was a head coach for the Bills. So I thought that was interesting when I was researching that, because I didn't know that. So what, Bill Belichick or the field?
Wow.
A lot of good coaches over the years.
If you asked me that a couple years ago, I probably would have said Belichick. But he's had trouble without Brady. Now, obviously, he was smart enough to put Brady in the position that he put Brady in, and understood him well enough to build a system around him. Bill Belichick is crazy in his ability to connect with players and see what you're capable of and put you in a position to be successful. I remember a few years back, they had a 4 tight end offense that they played like most of the year. Yeah. I never heard of a 4 tight end offense. Maybe a goal line, but that would be right. But he went to training camp and 4 of his best offensive players were tight ends. So, hey, I'll build a system to fit these guys. That to me is coaching. That to me is leadership. If you can make the best with what you've got, you're the best. And I don't know that you can argue with how he's been successful. So yeah, I guess from what I've seen, yeah, probably Belichick.
Interesting. Compassion or forgiveness?
Forgiveness.
Dedication or desire?
Wow, they're both huge. I guess desire. I don't think it's possible to be dedicated without desire. I think you can have. Yeah.
So you've been to South Africa.
I have.
Yeah.
I had a speech there.
Yeah, I saw that. How was that? Man, that must have been amazing.
It was interesting. I had to tweak a lot of stuff. I had to learn rugby lingo because they're all about rugby over there. So
yeah, right.
I had to describe what I was doing from a football standpoint, from a
Sure.
rugby standpoint.
How was the food?
Food was cool. It was good. We stayed at we went over early, stayed at a game farm. And so there was lots of wild meat, and, you're eating wild boar and Cape buffalo and impala and all this crazy stuff. And it was cool. I liked it.
Interesting. Honesty or being an active listener?
Honesty.
Vacuuming dishes or laundry? You've been married a long time.
Which do I like best, or which do I do the most, or what?
Well, I mean, which one you like the most?
Vacuuming.
Wow, interesting. Most football players do not say that just because of their backs and things like that. You might.
Yeah,
So
no, it's a mindless thing, and it's noisy. You
Yeah, that's right.
you just
Listen to
drift away.
podcast while you're vacuuming. Waffles, French toast, or pancakes?
French toast.
Have you ever had French toast with challah bread? It's a thicker Jewish bread.
I haven't. No.
Oh, you gotta try it. It's gotta go on your bucket list.
Okay.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. Candy or popcorn at the movies?
Candy.
All right. What kind?
Thin mints.
Wow, that's a first. Nick Saban or Urban Meyer?
Nick Saban. Just because Urban Meyer's an Ohio State guy, and I don't like him.
I agree. Dan Reeves or Vince Lombardi?
Vince Lombardi.
Wow. We had Bill Curry on. He told some great stories. It was amazing to have him on. So John Elway or Peyton Manning?
John Elway.
Wow. Interesting.
He was my teammate for years.
Yeah, right. Of
that
course.
Shouldn't be surprising.
Russell or Mahomes?
Mahomes.
Yeah. Boy, he's redefined that position.
Yeah.
He's something. All in the Family, 8 is enough, or Brady Bunch?
Brady Bunch.
Who's your favorite character? Alice?
No. No, I don't even remember the names. I just remember watching it all the time as a kid.
Wasn't his dad? The dad was named Mike. He was always chill.
Mike. Yeah, Mike was nice. Yeah.
Harold.
And, probably Marcy.
Yeah, there you go. Marsha. That was the older
Marsha. That was
the one that hit the nose with the football.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got drilled. Barry Sanders or Walter Payton? A couple more.
Wow. This is supposed to be the speed round. I tackled both of them. Yeah, I tackled both of them. I think Walter Payton, because he made you pay for tackling him. Barry Sanders, when we played Detroit, I was always a nose guard. My job was, as described by Joe Collier, you swim the center on either side you choose, and you take a shot at Sanders. He's not going to be where he is. So either go left or go right of where he is, and you might get him or you might not. And if everybody does that, you got a shot. Walter Payton was just a hard-nosed football player. I mean, he would turn into you instead of turning away from you.
Yeah.
I remember tackling him in the Pro Bowl, and I'm on top of him, and he's throwing elbows and me. Get off of me, man! And it's like, come on, man. We're in Hawaii. It's nice. Everybody's chill. It's okay. But no, that was just him. He was just a feisty guy. So I think Walter Payton.
That's cool. Great loss for sure. Dan Fouts or Dan Marino?
I think Marino, just because we were drafted the same year, and he was my favorite guy to sack. You sacked him, then he would get up and yell and cuss and scream at the offensive lineman you just beat, which just made it that much better. So, yeah.
Johnny Carson or Dave Letterman?
Carson.
Okay, a couple more. And then best gifts you ever got for Father's Day?
Wow. One of the various mugs. I don't know.
Your coffee or tea?
Yeah. No, just having the kids think of you. I truthfully not the gift isn't the issue. having him there. You know, we went out to lunch with my son and his girlfriend and my wife, and it was so much fun this year just to spend that time. You know, that's the gift, I guess, is that they appreciate what you did as a father.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, your dad, and then, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a great legacy, and it's a great story, and I'm glad you were able to come on and spend some time with us. And if we always ask this question, some other shows do it as well, but if you enjoyed your time and you could see another guest coming into the Sports Deli, who would you like to see come in and share space with us?
Wow. Keith Burns.
Keith Burns?
Yeah. You know, Keith Burns. Yeah. He's coaching somewhere right now. Keith Burns was I mentored him for a while in the NFL. He was the Broncos special teams captain for a long time.
Wow.
He was coaching, I think it was part of that San Diego group that got let go.
Right.
So that's why I thought you maybe knew who he was. But but a cool guy and a guy that I think would be good at this.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, your story's amazing. I hope you get the call.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be in the middle of the night again, just like when you got the call for the draft. That would be something.
There's going to be Jenny Ann calling again.
That's right. So anything else we didn't talk about that you want to share? We've been in 26 countries. We've had, Doug Williams on. We've had, like I said, Bill Curry and Ryan Harris and Hugh Jackson, so we love having the NFL guys on, especially someone like yourself with your story. It's just incredible.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. No, I can't think of anything that we missed. Thanks for the opportunity. Sorry I screwed it up the first time.
No, you're good. You're fine. Just glad you're okay. Christian is coming on, and he just got busy all of a sudden. He went dark on us, and I'm like, Christian, everything okay? That's all I care about, honestly. Is we're okay.
Yeah, stuff happens, but I get it. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good, Karl. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah.
Respect. All right, thank you so much.
Bye now.
I hope you enjoyed today's incredible interview, and we're so honored that you shared space with us today. You can always send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. And remember, please mask up if you haven't had your vaccine yet. Black Lives Matter. Stop Asian hate. It takes a village. And until next time, for Dr. J and Coach K, I'm Hootie Hoot. Peace.